Today I'd like to continue our journey through the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7. We've been talking about that section in verse 12 called the Golden Rule. And it's very interesting how that's really a universal teaching in so many religions. Rabbi Hillel, the famous Jewish scholar and teacher, said in response to a proselyte who wanted him to explain the whole law, while the proselyte stood on one foot. So there he is, standing there on one foot and saying, Rabbi, can you just explain the whole law to me? And the rabbi says, well, that which displeases you, do not do to another. This is the whole law. The rest is just commentary. So Rabbi Hillel was able to explain really the essence of the Jewish faith, and really, in many ways, the essence of all faith when it comes to moral teaching. And that is a very simple teaching. If something is displeasing to you, do not do that to another person. And really, it makes sense. We shouldn't hurt or harm another person. We shouldn't abuse another person. We should be doing acts of kindness and love to another person because that is what pleases us. So let's do that to other people. And if we lived our lives that way, we would be spreading love, we would be spreading peace, we'd be spreading harmony. Now Matthew, very interestingly, follows up that teaching in verses 13 and 14 with another teaching that kind of maybe in some ways flows from the Golden Rule. And that is the teaching called the narrow gate. Jesus says, enter through the narrow gate. So you know this is not going to be easy. And in many ways, the practicing of the Golden Rule has not been easy, as we see in the history of mankind. We see wars, we see poverty, we see hunger, we see abuse, we see crime. We see all of those negative actions that people have really done to one another. And so that sense of the narrow gate gives us an idea that this is going to be a challenging thing. This is not going to be something that's going to be easy for us all to do, and we can do 1, 2, 3. Jesus says, for the gate is wide, and the road is broad that leads to destruction. So this gate is very wide, and the road is broad, and that wide gate and that road that is broad, where does that lead? That leads to destruction. We might see this in many ways. We see people following popular trends. We see people making sports figures and entertainment figures their idols they're going to follow. And they follow them and they find out, oh my goodness, this person, why am I following him? I'm a diehard golfer. I love golfing, and Tiger Woods, of course, fantastic golfer. And yet, when we saw some of the things that he was involved with, we were like, hey, wait a minute, I don't know if I want to follow that path. That path is not leading to a good place. And of course, as any human being, Tiger had his faults, and now we see perhaps a more mature Tiger Woods than before. And sometimes that happens when success comes to a person so easily and so quickly that we lose perspective, and we can understand that. But still, that gate is wide, that road is broad, that leads to destruction. So many take that path. Many say, well, there's no harm in that. A little cocaine, no harm. A little heroin, no harm. Everybody's doing it. Those people who are telling me that it's wrong and that it's harmful and that it will hurt me, are they really in the know? And so That gate can be wide, and that road can be broad that leads to destruction. And Jesus says those who enter through that are many. So he tells us right out, this is going to be something that many people follow. Not just a few people, not just one here or there, but many people. And so it can be hard for us if we're taking another path. If we're trying to follow Jesus, we can say, well, it doesn't seem like too many people are on this path. They're on a really different path than the path that I'm on. So maybe I'm on the wrong path. That can be a thought that we might have. And Jesus says, how narrow the gate and how constricted the road that leads to life. So it's that road that leads to life, to true life. We see that over and over again. That path, it's a narrow one. It's a difficult one. It's a challenging one. But where Jesus will help us on this narrow path. Jesus will help us through this narrow gate. But when we see the other people on the wider one, then we can question ourselves and say, have I made the right choice here? And Jesus says, and those who find this narrow gate and this tiny little road that leads to life, those that find it are few. In contrast to the other wider gate and much broader road, many are on that. So this is a path that few really choose. And so what we see here is, in Matthew, a series of antitheses that contrast two kinds of life within the Christian community. And those who obey the words of Jesus and those who don't. So my choice is, well, Jesus is teaching this. Is it a good teaching? Many will say, well, the golden rule, if you want to get ahead, it really doesn't work. You've got to really be proactive. So the other person at work, they're going to get my position if I don't kind of go after them first. So let me make sure that I'm protected and I'm safe. So this golden rule, it sounds good. Sounds wonderful. And it might be golden for some, but, not really for me. If I'm going to succeed in this world, if I'm going to do well, and if I'm going to have a good job and make some money, I can't follow this golden rule thing. It's not workable. It's not practical. And so what Jesus says, what other religious leaders have said, I don't think it's really something that most people can really follow in this world. Maybe in another world, fine, but not in this world. Most of these sayings that we see in this section of Matthew, most of these antitheses about the narrow gate, about the broader path, are found in the Q source. They're also found in Luke. So we see that there's some material that's common to Mark, other that's common to Q, and so Matthew and Luke would draw from Mark, but they also draw from this source, Q, this common source. The metaphor of the two ways that Jesus speaks about here in this section of chapter 7, it was common, very common in pagan philosophy. So this is not something that is brand new. We see it in a lot of the philosophers, and also in the Hebrew Scriptures. It's found in the Didache, section 1:6, and also the Epistle of Barnabas, sections 18 to 20. So this is a teaching, a very famous teaching, that was found in many sources. And if we take a look at that teaching, we see the importance of that teaching to give us a sense of perspective. Because many times we can say, well, it doesn't seem like too many are on this path. Am I on the right path? We can sort of question ourselves. But I think if we keep our eyes on Jesus, if we look at the perspective that Jesus is offering, we really can take a different view of this. We can say, yeah, well, Jesus is offering us this path. It's a wonderful path. It's going to be a fruitful path. I'm not concerned if other people are following it. What I'm concerned is, what would Jesus like me to follow?